Okay, so in this video we're going to go through the installation of the server, Git, Node, and PM2. This isn't one of our UAT or production environments. This is just a virtual machine set up, and just to show you exactly what I've done on top. It's the exact same version of Ubuntu server as we are running for UAT and production. It's the exact same process. It's just we've already got the UAT and production environment set up, so I don't want to redo those. So here's just a mirror of it. So let's start our setup. I am going to do a lot of pausing to skip over a lot of the setup doing its setup bullshit. All right, let's get this started. So I've got a minimal setup because we don't need any of the bloat that comes with Ubuntu server. Letting it find a DHCP. All right, I am just going to leave that. Although on our production in UAT, I've set a static IP, but since this one's going to be deleted as soon as I'm done, I'm going to leave our DHCP just as it is. I'm going to write that down though. So that is 10.0.0.230/24. All right. As I said, leaving a DHCP for now, but not for now, for this instance, but in production and UAT, I'm setting that as static. If this was setting up for one of those, I'd literally just use that IP address that's already there, the 230, but I'd set it up as static. Okay, don't want a proxy, don't want a mirror. Okay, we want to use the full disk. That's fine, using full disk. Continue. Okay, your name. So let's set this up. Let's just say rate my poly. Server name's the name of the server. Let's call it instruct rate my poly. In the other ones, the server name is prod rate my poly and UAT rate my poly. Pick your username. We'll just make it RMP. Password can be RMP as well. Done. Okay, so we want to set up the SSH server so we can get into it. Because on all of our servers we're connecting over SSH, they're all headless. Don't care about any of these packages because we are going to install packages as we need. So this is the setup process. I'm just going to leave it do its thing. I'm going to pause the video now and come back once the installation is complete. All right, installation is finished, so let's reboot. It's probably going to ask us to unmount the CD-ROM before we do anything. So let's do that. Configure CD-ROM. Well, let's just, can't do it while you're running. That's fine. So let's shut you down, remove it, and then stop. All right, let's remove the CD-ROM. There, it's gone. And now let's start you back up again. This is going to load in for the first time. Cool. Let's just try our login, which was RMP for the username, RMP for the password. Works fine. All right, so let's log back out again, and let's set this up to be headless, so simulate our computer just in a closet. So let's stop you again. Configure options. startup, custom, okay, on window closed, keep running in the background. So essentially, as soon as we close that window, it's going to keep going in the background. Let's start that up. Alright, so start it up. Let's close you. It's still running in the background, and now let's load up our terminal. Cool. So let's SSH into it. SSH RMP at 10.0.0.230. First time we're logging in, so it's asking for fingerprints. It won't do that again. Yes. Password was RMP. There we go. We are logged into it. That is it. So what I like to do is I like to set a host for that IP address, so I don't have to worry about the IP address. This is the guide for doing it on Mac and Linux. Windows be completely different. Don't even ask me how to do it. Let's do that now. So I want to go sudo nano, that right there. There we go. So now we can add that host in. So 10.0.0.230, and we're going to call it instruct rate my poly.com. Let's save that. There we go. So now we can go SSH RMP at instruct rate my poly.com. Why didn't you work? Did I do something incorrect? Sudo nano 230. I spelled instruct incorrect. Instruct. There we go. Ask for the fingerprints for the first time. And there we go. RMP. There we go. Alright, first thing we want to do after every installation is do an update and upgrade. So sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. Type in our password, RMP. Go. Of course, it's coming up wrong. Invalid operation. Okay. There we go. Alright, I'm going to pause it while it does these updates and upgrades. Alright, that is done. So now we want to install our dependencies. So sudo apt install, and we want to install git, nodeJS, and npm. Go. I'm going to pause this while it installs those three things. Alright, so they are all installed. So now they're installed, we want to do our apt update and apt upgrade again. So this shouldn't actually take too long. There we go. That is done. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to install a Node Package Manager package to a global state. And the package we want to use is Process Manager 2, PM2. Now, to run a Node application, we just run Node and the JavaScript file. But that is a headed file, so we have to leave Node open and leave terminal open. But Process Manager 2 is headless, so we can run our Node packages in the background, which means we can log out and the server can still remain headless. So let's install that. So we'll go npm I for install -g to make it global, and the package is PM2. Let that install, shouldn't take long at all. And we're getting an error. And the reason for that is we were installing something globally without sudo privileges. There we go. We are all done with that. Alright, so now we're going to actually start setting up our repository. And we're going to set up our repository into the root. So we're going to go to our root directory, have all of them there. So I want to create a directory and call it repos. And because we're in root, we actually need to use sudo, which we're going to need quite a bit. Alright, so now we're going to need to change permissions for that repo so PM2 can access it. So sudo chmod 777 repos. There we go. So go ls-l. We can check up our repos and we've got all those permissions. Cool. So now let's go into it. The first thing we want to do is want to create a bare repository. So Git, when you're creating a repository, it'll add a lot of different files. We don't want any of that. We want to add them all ourselves. So we want to have a bare repository. So very, very nice and easy. We just want to say git init, and then we want to say bare, and we want to give it a file, and let's call it rmp.git. Go. And there we go. We've created an empty repository. Next thing we want to do is we want to clone that empty repository. The reason for this is Git is our Git repository there is going to be where we push all of our Git branches to, but it's not going to actually run our site. This cloned repository is going to actually be the live version of our site. So what will happen is we're going to push changes to our Git repository. If it's part of the master branch, then it's going to automatically clone across to our live directory, and then Process Manager will restart the server depending on what's inside that file. So now let's clone that across. I want to say git clone rmp.git to live. There we go. Look at our file. We've got that live file now, but it's empty. So if we go into live, it's empty because rmp was an empty repository. Okay, but rmp.git is not completely empty. It's going to have its normal stuff. And what we need to do is we need to create a hook. So every time, hooks. So every time something is pushed, we're going to run a script which will do everything we need. So let's create a script that's called there. So let's say touch post ICIVE. So now that's created that inside here, our post receive. Now let's edit that. Nano post receive. What's this? Nano doesn't exist. Awesome, because we've got no packages. Sudo apt install nano. Alright, I'll pause it while nano is installing. Nano is installed. Let's run that again. Oh, there we go. Alright, so now we're creating our bash script. So as every bash script, we're going to use our shebang bin bash. Okay, so the first thing we want to do when this executes is we want to send a message back to the user letting it know that this script has been triggered. So let's say echo post receive triggered. Yep, so that's just going to send a message to the user that's pushing. So now we want to navigate to where that live folder is. So go cd/repos/live. Then we want to let the user know that we're checking out what's inside of our Git repository and transferring it over to our live repository. So we want to say echo post receive git checkout. Cool. All right, now we actually want to run that checkout. So which is, as I said, essentially just cloning across everything from within the repository over to that live file. So we're saying that we want to get everything from within there. We want to send it over to there. We only want to get that master file, and we only want to use any changes that have been made since the previous. And now after this is we want to run npm and install any new dependencies that have changed, because pushing our node modules folder from our website will take forever because it's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of small files. So we're going to tell it not to upload our node modules every time we upload, so that way when we get it, it'll install them on the server as it gets here. So what we want to do is let the user know that's what's happening. Post receive install node modules. Nice and easy is an npm install, and it's going to install everything that's within the package.json folder. Okay, so now we want to restart the server. Restarting the server. Okay, so what we essentially want to do here is not just restart the server, because we won't be able to install new packages. We want to actually delete our server from our process and restart it. So then we want to say pm2 delete rate my poly, and so what that's doing is it's deleting the process that we've already named rate my poly, which we haven't actually done yet because we haven't started, but that's fine. Okay, if rate my poly isn't there, we want to say true. So that's pretty much saying if rate my poly is not there, keep going, because if rate my poly is not there and we don't have that or true, it's just going to error out. Okay, so now we actually want to start that back up. So I want to say pm2 start server.js. Server.js is going to be our server file that we've created. We're going to give it a name, and that name will be the same as from our delete line. So rate my poly. Okay, now we just want to let the user know it's all done. Server started. And that's it for that file. So we want to exit out. There it is. And the last thing we need to do is make that file executable. So if we look right now, our post receive file is not executable, which means it won't execute, obviously. So I want to change that. So we'll say chmod UG for user and group plus X for executable, and we want to say post receive. There we go. So now if we do our ls-l, we can now see our post receive now has our X's in there for executable. And that is it for our server. So now we can go back and create just a random bullshit site and upload it to there. So I'm just going to pause this for now and get back. Alright, so since we don't need this server anymore, we're going to exit out. There we go. We don't need our terminal anymore. Everything will be done in our code editor. Right there. Alright, cool. So now let's create a new file, or new folder. Documents. I'll just throw it into code tests and call it instruct rate my poly. There we go. Open that up. Okay, so now if we try going to that website, it's not going to work. Not going to work because we've got nothing. And we can always put the 10.0.0.230, which was the IP address, comes up with the exact same thing because we've got nothing in there. Alright, so let's start off by bringing up our terminal. We want to initialize this, so npm init-y is just giving boilerplate package.json, just means we don't have to type anything in. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is initialize as a git, so git init, so we've initialized that. Next, we want to create our server.js file, which is what our script that we wrote is looking for, and we want to put some stuff into there. So let's create npm install Express. So Express is just going to be a simple website. The next thing we want to do is we want to add a git ignore file. And as I said to you earlier, we didn't want to upload this node modules folder. So modules is in our git ignore. Cool, nice and easy. As said before, we don't have anything there. So let's create that now. So first of all, we want to go our dependencies on express is equal to require that express. Then we want our global variables. We want to pull in that express into our app, pull it in as a function. We want to set a port. Port is equal to, let's give it port. Let's give it port, 3000. Okay, next we want our app config, and we want to listen. So app.listen, our port number, and we just want to log out to our console saying server started. Okay, the last thing we want to do, because right now if we run that, say nodeserver.js, this is only on our local machine. So if we go localhost, nothing is there. Oh, actually we wanted localhost 3000. Cannot get. The reason we've got the 3000 is there because that's the port we're using. Our web server will use a different port. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, this is just an example. Okay, so cannot get slash, so we're going to create that route. App.get slash route with request and response. We want to respond with the send of rate my poly. So now we refresh that page. We have to restart our server. There we go. Refresh our page. Now we're getting that rate my poly. So this is on our local machine, but we want to send this to our instruct ratemypoly.com. So to do that, what we're needing, let's just stop our server. We'll get rid of this one. Okay, so what we need to do first is we need to add that Git repository. So right now, if you say git remote-v, so it's going to just list out all of our remotes. There aren't any. So I'm going to add one. So I'll say git remote add. We want to add, give it a name, call it live. It can be anything you want. It's just the name that you'll push to, and then the actual Git repository itself. So we're using SSH to push it. So we go SSH : / and then we're going to give it our address, which is rmp@instruct-ratemypoly.com, and then we give it the directory for it, which was /repos/rmp.git. Okay, with that instruct-ratemypoly.com, that can be the IP address. So hit enter, and now if we run that git remote-v again, we've got those in there for pulling and pushing. So now we want to push to our server, but we need to let Git know what to push. So we're going to say git add dot, which is adding everything. And then we also want to say git commit. So we want to commit those changes and give it a just a comment, and we're just going to call it init for the initial push. Let's call it init push. That's going to do it. It's done that. So now let's push that. So we can say git push, because we're pushing to live, which is these addresses, and we want to push our master route right there. So hit enter. It's going to ask us for our SSH password, which was RMP. Hit enter, and now that's pushed up. Now we should be able to refresh this on port 3000, and of course you're not working. All right, so we can check that out and see why that's not working. Actually, let's just try this 10.0.0.1, 230, 3000. No, not working. So let's check out our process manager. So I'll open up this, SSH, go there, RMP. So now we can say PM2 logs. Okay, so it looks like PM2 hadn't actually started yet, so that's why. So we'd installed PM2, but we haven't started. So now, right now, let's just go PM2 monits, which is PM2 monitor. Okay, it's definitely started now. So now let's push that again. We can't push the exact same thing, so we have to make a little change. This is a change. Now let's say those once again. Git push live master. Go RMP for that. That is pushed. Let's try that again. Of course you're not working. Let's check our logs again. Into logs. It's not doing what we want it to do. Cool. Okay, so figured it out. It was me typing incorrectly. So let me show you the changes made. So we're coming back into here. So we're in our hooks file, that post receive. So ls, looking at here, I spelled, you probably got it, picked it up before, but I spelled receive wrong. I went IE when it should be an EI. So what I've done is I've copied it across with the correct spelling. I'll just remove that one. So I'm post receive. So let's get rid of the ship one. Okay, the next thing that I did incorrectly, so I'll go nano post receive, and that's empty. Awesome, that's exactly what I wanted. Oh, because I went into the wrong one. Again, EI, there it is right there. Okay, so the next thing I did incorrectly, which you probably picked up on, was spelled install incorrectly. So now that's typed correctly. Now let's exit out of there. Go. So now we can come back here, clear out that. So let's change again, save that. Now we want to do our git add and git commit with comment. Then we'll push that, git push live master. Ask for our password, RMP. There we go, it's going. So if we look at this now from pushing it, these here, the post receives, are the comments that we put in, the echoes. So we have our triggered, our checkout, okay, already on the master, so that doesn't really matter. We got installing our node modules, installing whichever node modules we want. That right there is saying delete the rate my poly out of PM2, and right here it's saying start the instance of rate my poly. So now if we open up our browser to here, we get that rate my poly. Same as instruct rate my poly 3000. There it is. Okay, so we'll just make a change to make sure this works fine. So let's change rate my poly to Toby's an idiot. Save that, and now let's git commit. Let's change our comment to a different comment, and then we want to push it. Git push live master. Ask for a password, RMP. Again, it's doing all of its stuff, and now we'll refresh that page. Toby's an idiot. Okay, so that's all it was. It was my spelling was incorrect for post receive and install. But that's all working now. So, as I said, essentially what's happening is, let's bring up our repo again. So right there, we're SSH'd into our server. So in that hooks, post receive. So we're running a script to say, navigate to our live directory, the one that's going to share to the internet. We're going to clone across everything from the rmp.git to our live, and we want to only do our master and whatever changes are made to it. We want to install any dependencies, which will be in here. So it'll look at there, it'll look at that. If there's anything new inside there, it'll install it. From there, it will delete RMP, rate my poly from our process manager. If we want to run that now, pm2 list, you can see right there, rate my poly is running. So it'll delete that out of it, then it'll restart it, and that's pretty much it. Nice and easy, but as you can see, all those echoes is what's actually showing up when we push it. Triggered, checkout, installing node modules. So that's it. Other than me typing incorrect things, that's nice and simple. Any questions, just go ahead and ask.